because if I allowed this check, I mean it doesn't. Yeah, I mean it doesn't do much. Right, so we're back for day 2 of the chess improvement mission, and you see it's going wrong already. I'm recording with the webcam today. I tried this little DJI action camera, but having it over there it looks weird. So I'm hoping that with this setup I'll look slightly less cadaverous. But that pointless aside done with, I thought I'd look and see in my old account what my peak rating actually was and when my last games were, and as you can see my last rapid game was actually in November 22. I looked at my all-time peak rating, so it was 1646. That's alright, so that was in... Is this American date format? Yeah, it's where they do the date the wrong way round, isn't it? And put the month before the day, because I don't know why they do that, but anyway, it was early in 2022. So I'm going to have to just quickly log out of this account and nip back into the other one now, aren't I? Because we're not playing on this account. Yes, we're using this one. That's correct. I had to do Longshanks with a Z because with an S was taken, and I don't know if I really like that, but I've done it anyway. So today we're gonna be more sensible and go with a 15. Should we get? Do I need the 10-second increment? I suppose that's the standard format, isn't it? Yeah, I do agree to play fairly. Although I'll probably lose if I do. Alright, so we're up against BZ Katsan, someone from Greece. And we're just gonna keep playing e4 at the moment because it's a move. I'm sure was it Robert Fisher who said it was best by test, so if it was good enough for old Bob, it's good enough for us. Is this opponent going to abort the game? Maybe. Hello. This is thrilling content already. No, they don't. Okay. Right, so we've got the old King's Pawn game, so that's just what we like. I think I mentioned in the first video that I'd learnt a bit of for the Italian opening, so we'll go with that. I don't know it anymore. I think there's a couple of interesting ways to play. If black develops the bishop to c5, then I'm trying to remember. The good old Evans gambit continues with... No, hold on a second. That doesn't work with the knight already developed here. Yeah, I was gonna... the Evans... How does Evans gambit go? I'm sure somebody will let me know. But it essentially revolves around baiting the black bishop into taking a what there. That's odd. I don't know why anyone would do that. And I'm actually considering just playing d4. I'm going to play d4. If they initiate exchanges on the d4 square, then I'll be targeting this knight. My queen could end up here, and therefore if I take the knight they can't recapture because they'll lose the rook. So let's hope that happens. I could still lose from that position. I'm well capable of losing from there. And if that doesn't, if that doesn't transpire, then we've just taken over the centre, haven't we? Am I being stupid? Because I'm almost certain that the player ratings used to come up here. Maybe I'm imagining that. Not that it matters, because obviously this player is terrible. They do that. I think that that's very odd. I also think it might be worth just pushing on with d5. Taking into account the fact that this player likes to put knights in silly places, they'll probably go here. I can just drop the bishop back. I'll probably just bring it back here. And that will mean... Yeah, I do like that. Or do I like that? I'm just contemplating whether, now that the bishop's no longer defending this pawn, I'd quite like them to exchange here so that my queen can end up on d4. Maybe it's worth just developing that, waiting to see what they do, because they've totally they've done a real footgun of an opening, because putting the bishop here means that like their other bishop can't, this pawn can't move, so it can't challenge the centre. Presumably they're going to fianchetto the white bishop, but it looks rubbish, doesn't it? And I think, if you're not good, you can kind of base the quality of an opening on just whether it looks silly. Well, that is to say, if your pieces are in silly places, you're probably doing something wrong. They're doing alright. So I think this is, although it kind of unravels the centre a bit for them, this can't be bad for us, can it? We've got pieces looking at, just looking at that to destroy their king side. In fact, I think my biggest threat is to take this knight, which can't be recaptured, as I mentioned before. And if they try to remedy that by castling, which would, I think they need to play. They don't need to play that. It's a move, isn't it? I was going to suggest that they needed to play the slightly odd-looking Queen f6. But even, that doesn't work either, does it? Because I would have captured their queen. They would have been forced to recapture with the pawn. The knight would have been hanging. It would have looked ugly. The knight would have... Yeah, the knight would have had to go back here or something, or... Because if it came forward, then I could just start kicking it. What about e5? What about bishop takes h6, pawn takes h6, queen d5? Threatening to checkmate here. Or what about I just play queen d5, which looks quite slow. I think their only recourse then is to play queen e7, because they have to start doing something to defend this, because obviously I'd be playing queen d5 with the intention of removing the knight. There'd no longer be a defender of this square, and then it'd be game over. I also quite like the idea. It looks a bit dodgy, but hear me out. h4. h4, the knight can then hop here. But I don't care, because if I play h4, then bishop g, whatever that is, g5, then they would need to drop back with the bishop. Quite like to remove the bishop from the defense of this diagonal, so that would make this maneuver potentially a lot more potent. Is it worth just castling? If I play castles, they're playing the knight here, aren't they? And then, so why would I voluntarily allow them to have a good time? Maybe it's best to just bring out this bishop somewhere anyway. Would presumably be e3 though. And the knight can hop here and be annoying. h3 is an incredibly boring move. I could play f3. f3, h4. I mean, they're not going to... let's think of something to do. Because if I play queen d5, I'm just encouraging them to play the odd looking c6, which means I have to move the queen, so it feels like I should play quickly. If I capture the knight, okay, this might be the totally incorrect way of doing this, because I've allowed this check. I mean, it doesn't do much, but it's just the fact that I just didn't even bother to think about it. I mean, I might. Would it be? Should we be cocky and play King E2? Because if I bring the queen back and let them have a queen trade, I mean, this capture I don't think is. If I play G3, then they can just take that pawn. So I think I need to really play this. So I think cocked up is the technical term. But I bet the evaluation still thinks I'm winning. It's just that I've allowed black to have a game. Because if they take here with the bishop, which looks, you know, it kind of, it's the kind of thing you do, isn't it? Because you think, oh well, I can win a pawn, but you're just putting yourself in a pin. Not sure what they're up to there. Are they just defending this square? Just thinking about, if I bring in the knight here, and then on the next move I could play knight f4, which would basically force them to trade off this bishop. Again, is that too slow? Do I play like yet another pawn move in h3? Doesn't seem right. I feel like see, at this point, if I really don't want to just take that knight. I think that must be wrong. I'm going to do this. It's a move. I've used up an inordinate amount of time on 10 moves. I'll be interested to see how winning we were until I decided to go on this little jaunt with the pawns. If I played G4, do you think they'd do something silly like sacking the knight? I see. I mean, it's a move. Right, I need to do something. And that's going to be... This is unusual. My knight is quite restricted now though. I'm thinking if it comes to it, I could do a bit of a kind of castle by hand walk over here. If he lashes out with b5, don't think. Let's say b5 came. Oh no, I did knight takes b5, c takes b5, bishop takes b5. The bishop's... his bishop is still here. Which it shouldn't be, but... and that's what he does. See, I know what these people are up to. b5, knight takes b5. Doesn't really get me anywhere. Because he wants his bishop on this diagonal anyway. About bishop takes, c takes, knight takes. Thinking about the knight being able to fork king and rook on this square. I think if I play bishop b3, he's just going to keep walking forward. And then the knight starts to... the knight becomes dislodged. He probably can then take this pawn. I think we need... I feel like if... oh. Looks like we're losing this pawn. No then. I think I might need to play a3. Knight takes c5, sorry, b5, c takes b5, queen takes b5, check. Is there any kind... how about if I I take here, if he takes with, he'll probably, the correct thing to do would be to take with the pawn, so I don't really want to rely on him taking with the queen. How about we try and dislodge the queen? He does go in for the sack. Well, it's brave. No, for this to work, we'd need this pawn to not be here. I needed to... Yeah, he can take here. I'm not playing... See, I just go to pieces, don't I? No pun intended. I'm just thinking, if I bring my knight here, that will probably induce a trade. Okay. Kind of just buying time with that. Funnily enough, I can put the bishop here, can't I? That's quite a fun move. Just to be annoying. Or is it better than annoying? It goes there. If I check, I suppose I should just block it. Why aren't they taking here? I think, have I I think I've let this become even, although the simple do I care about this pawn? No. I'll defend it now. Yeah, my material advantage is not that advantageous at the moment. Because the knight is... like, where does the knight go? It can't even go there now. I think I'm going to try and... does this trade? Thinking if I trade off this rook, I imagine he'll recapture with the queen. But then again, he mightn't. Will he just take with the king? It is difficult to say. It's a good job we've got increment. Because the opponent is, you know, I wouldn't say getting low on time, but they're in a bit of a bind with the king still here. I think if I was them, I was going to say, I probably would start to fling pawns and then I'd expose my own king more and it just wouldn't be great. A4 might be good for me at some point. Obviously they can't easily recapture because then their own A pawn drops and, you know, my queen can come in here, give a check on the back rank, maybe take this pawn. Queen G4 looks appealing, but then they can, if they did choose to play King E7 in response to that, okay, they resigned. Bit disappointing. I see, I've got to play 3 more games to be rated. Oh well, we won one anyway, so I suppose it might be worth doing a bit of analysis of the up to the middle game to see just how many cock-ups I made. Cool. Here we are to review that last abomination. I think I need another recording option apart from this webcam, because I don't know, it just looks like it's being recorded on a potato, but we'll go with it. I think I mentioned Evans Gambit during the game, which you know, for anyone who doesn't know, proceeds E4, knight F3. just played it out. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop C4, bishop C5, and then you encourage the bishop to capture here and do this, which I think a lot of good players will say is bad, but I just think it's quite easy to play as white because it's obvious what you need to do, which is, you know, throw pawns down the middle of the board. But that being said, let's have a look at the game which I actually played. How do I find my games? Seriously though. I'm sure this interface has changed. Games, oh there's the games. Right, so that player was 977 rated and actually played, so we basically played with similar accuracy, which is not surprising, but right, let's have a look at the review. So as we know, we went like this. Yeah, stupid, nothing more to be said. Sorry. So I take over the center, and you know, this is ridiculous again, and as I said, it'd be interesting to see just how bad this is. And when you consider that the computer evaluates this as worse than losing 2 pawns, and all you've done is kind of get your bits out in an odd manner, possibly not the best way to express it, but yeah, it just shows how bad, you know, people play the opening at this level. Well, how badly people play in general. Apparently I missed... I'm trying to remember why I didn't consider that obvious move. Because the only response is to play the exceptionally weakening f6, or perhaps bring the knight back, which probably wouldn't be too bad. I mean, it would be bad because they've played badly, and once you start to play badly, things compound, don't they? But anyway, you know, the evaluation bar just keeps increasing because they just have pieces placed where they shouldn't be, and I have all my bits are in the middle of the board. That is the best defense though at this point. Okay, I thought that was not, but I'm surprised that the computer wants me to leave the king on the back rank, because that takes longer to then connect the rooks. So I'm gonna stick my neck out and say computer's wrong. And there might be an actual specific tactical reason that it's right that obviously I can't see, but from the other reason I think this is wrong is that if I bring the bishop to e3, I can start to chase away the... Mind you, I can chase away the queen with the bishop anyway, because my queen's on the same diagonal. So that's not actually relevant, but there we go. They move a piece. Okay. I move a piece. Yeah, I was reticent to play this straight away, especially with the bishop here, because I thought they're more likely to, you know, trade or sacrifice the knight to generate this bit of an attack. I thought that with the bishop placed here, the king's got more stuff around it. That's probably illusory, because of course chess pieces don't move like that, but psychologically it was appealing, more appealing for the bishop to be there. They do that. I did wonder whether this was better, and it is. It may be, I wonder if it's because not only do I do more to pressure this knight, but I also give the white bishop another square. Don't know. Could be that. And apparently c6 is best for black. Okay. I make a fairly rudimentary move. It's interesting that I just neglected to sacrifice here, because I think it's just completely winning, isn't it? If I was to play knight takes c5, you know, knight takes c5, c takes... Sorry, why am I saying c5? Knight takes b5, c takes b5, bishop takes b5, and then I've got a bishop, a queen, and a rook, you know, looking at this pinned pawn. And there's very little they can do. Is there anything they can do about it? I don't know. Maybe I thought the queen could defend, but of course if the queen's got nowhere to go on this diagonal because of all these pawns, so quite ludicrous lack of calculation ability on my part. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? That's an interesting defence that I don't think a player of my calibre or of this calibre would notice. To retreat. Oops. I think my mouse battery has run out. Have we got a... Oh, let's give it a plug in. Yeah, to retreat the bishop to interfere with the attack on d7, opening the queen's attack on my bishop and thus offering a trade of bishops it's pretty clever. It's much cleverer than the players in this game were. But let's rewind to... I think the other thing that annoys me about this is, you know, the bog standard knight sacrifice here I rejected for no good reason, and then I think I was contemplating taking with the bishop, because maybe if the bishop wasn't here I could do things with the knight, but it's just... I think it's just another case of not being able to visualise the board state, or I think maybe my brain had forgotten that I had a rook here, so I was thinking that that this pawn was adequately defended, when in fact it was, you know, it was just there to be taken. I would have taken with check, and yeah, the game would have been over basically, I think. However, well, oh no, I'm going back too far. So we went to here, and instead I just dropped back. I think that seems visually correct, doesn't it, for black to do this at this point, because they can finally have a white bishop. But it shows that, what move are we on? 29 moves in, and they've just managed to kind of develop their bishop, so it shows how poorly they played the opening. And I think something that I often do is get scared when I see pawns starting to enter my side of the board, so I played a3, which actually gives up a good chunk of my advantage. The computer sensibly just wants me to walk the king out of the middle, which would be sensible. but I'm not sensible, so I didn't do it. I'm trying to... Why did I just take this trade? I think my reasoning was that the recapture with this pawn, it doesn't really weaken their king anymore because it's already in the middle of the board and on the back rank, but yeah, I don't actually know what I thought about that. I think that was a case of just doing it. Yeah, I think I just thought, well, I'm in an advantageous position, so trade pieces, the simplest thought in chess, really, or one of the simplest. And right now, the computer really loathes that move. Presumably because it... No, it doesn't... Yeah, I was going to say it can't possibly like the knight sacrifice because it's fairly obviously, that the king can escape. Because the check that's eventually given by the queen on g4 just... It's one of those moves it's like a spite check. It just encourages my king to go where my king wants to go anyway. So I don't know why... I can't really fathom why the computer hates this move so much. I see. Just because it gives up the h3 square to the queen. Yep. Yeah, actually, I mean, it's... why these things are hard to see, I don't know, but of course the white queen can just sidle in here. Start giving checks here. It's actually quite catastrophic, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, as soon as I allow this, I have to spot that this attack is incoming on the base of the pawn chain, and it's only my king that's holding the thing together. And we're almost, at this level, that's almost back to equality. I think anything, people like if you watch like Levy's videos where he says, oh, at 0.8 completely winning, maybe if you're playing at that level, then 0.8 is an advantage that you're capable of evaluating in your head. But I think advantages of less than 1 are basically a drawing position, a level position at this level. But I did, I kind of baited white into doing something. Why do I keep saying white when I'm white? I baited black into doing something stupid. As you can see, the king walks away. I'm quite... Now, isn't that strange that as soon as I played this move, trying to reposition the knight, I thought that I'd allowed this capture to happen and things to start going wrong over here, but actually it's apparently the correct move, the best move. I'm just trying to see whether... Can the bishop... Oh. If bishop takes b2, queen... Of course, bishop takes b2, queen b3 is a double attack on this loose pawn and the bishop that would be stood on this square. That's not... When you're not mid-game, that's actually not that difficult to see, is it? But I missed it, so the game continued. I carried on doing the manual castling operation. I wasted a move. Reposition the knight. I'd like to be able to tell you why, or tell myself why, the computer prefers the king to go to b1. Yeah, it looks like it's because by putting the bishop here, I interfere with the queen's defense of f3, and actually black can play rook f3. Which doesn't look... What does that... If they play rook f3, I play bishop takes h6, they play... It doesn't look great, does it? I don't know, I can't see that many moves ahead, so... Which is a problem, isn't it? If you can't calculate, you can't play chess. They blunder. Well, not blunder. They play somewhat inaccurately. I move a piece. I think this... The fact that the computer wants black to move its queen to this square, to e5, is something that I would not consider if I was black. Again, it's that psychological failing where you think because a piece is in close proximity to other pieces that it's more likely to be attacked or something, but that isn't true, because chess pieces don't move like that, do they? You know, I think I was just hoping that black would be silly here and make the capture and lose the game. They didn't. And I think at this point I just went here because I suppose my thinking was that I'm getting low on time, lowish on time. Black doesn't actually know what to do. I think that's evident at this point. And, you know, I've got a fairly significant advantage there, haven't I? But I'm not sure how I would break through. I guess it would have to be a4. Although if I play a4 and they were to, you know, they can't play b4 because then I would play queen takes a6, but that does allow the black queen to take on h2. No, it doesn't, does it? Now I'm just trying to think if that sequence happened and my queen was therefore on a6. Right, if I gave check on the back rank at that point, I suppose if they interposed with the rook on the d file, I could do the old exchange the... Oh, hold on. Yeah, I could exchange the queen for 2 rooks, but I don't think queen for 2 rooks would be great in this position. because there'd still be a fair few pawns on the board. No, I couldn't do that, could I? Of course I couldn't do that. Yeah, because if I went a4 and they went, you know, they wouldn't have to, would they? But if they made the potential mistake of b takes a4, if I did q takes a6, and they came in, you know, if they played q takes h2, if I responded with queen a8 check, then I was thinking that rook d2 could be met with queen takes, sorry, it's not d2, d8. I was thinking that that could be met with queen takes d8, king takes d8, rook takes f8, but that doesn't work because, well, yeah, it does. It's rook takes f8 check, their king has to move, and then I don't know why I was forgetting that. Well, no, of course it doesn't work. Does it work? This is too much calculation for me. It works, I think it works because their queen would be here, their rook would be taken with check, and at the very least I could slide back here, and so the position would be end up with, essentially I would have these two rooks and knight, and they would have their queen on this square. They could pick up this pawn. Could they pick up this pawn? I definitely can't visualise that many ply ahead. You know, this is more just me kind of waffling to try and, I'm essentially trying to make you think I'm better than I am, but you know, you can see by the way I played the game that I'm not. But yeah, I think that'll do for that. Ta.